Yo, guys, welcome back to Kilimanjaro podcast. I always feel cringy when I do that, but it's calm. It's calm. We got a couple of guests over here from Canada.
Actually, Canada.
Alright,
Toronto to be exact.
But yeah, you guys have been doing podcasts for a while now, innit? So we've been looking
Yeah.
at your stuff, leaving comments and stuff like that, leaving a trail basically. Hopefully, one day you find our shit. You find our. Okay, cool. Let's get. Yeah. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves and then get to it?
Yeah. So we're the Cousin Connection podcast.
Yeah.
You know, you got one host here. My name's Amir Haroon, and you got my co-host.
I'm Sarah. So we're cousins. We decided to start a podcast during the pandemic, like many other people.
Yeah.
We've always felt like we've had pretty like good conversations just whenever we hang out, anyways. And so
Yeah.
we one day were like, you know what, we should just record this and see where it goes. And that's honestly how we started. Like we agreed that we would start it. Amir bought all the microphones. We don't even have a camera. We actually record on his phone.
Cool.
Yeah, so shout out to his
Oh,
phone.
we do a lot of our stuff like that, to be honest. Like, we
Yeah.
use phones mostly in the podcast studio, wherever we are.
Like you realize how you can do so much with so little. When you
Yeah.
start up, like any endeavor you have, like first look at the tools you have and see what you can do with them. If you feel like you need to invest in a couple things, like you can do
Yeah.
that, but you don't always have to go over the top and get all this extra gear just to do
Yeah.
something like a podcast or even starting a YouTube channel for whatever you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's barriers of entry to think about. There's like, other people who are like umming and ahhing and are not as confident. And sometimes when you're not as confident and you stall on yourself, you just waste time thinking what could have been, and then it's like 6 months down the line and you haven't started something. So
Yeah.
And that's
definitely
amazing
good
how
advice.
you also like gave it that one shot to do a podcast, and now look where you guys are now. You're like
Exactly.
You know
Yeah.
what? Like, I think
Thank you.
between the both of us, like, Amir was the one that was like, you know what, let's just start. And I was very like apprehensive. I'm like, are you sure? Like, we don't
Yeah.
even know what we're going to talk about. He's like, no, it'll be fine. Like, we got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first episode we ever recorded didn't even make it to air because it got deleted, right? Or was that the second?
Oh no, that was
episode?
like I think the third or fourth episode. We did one where we just like it didn't record properly or something like that. But
Yeah.
honestly, like the best time to start in anything you want is today. Like no matter what it is you want to do, like when you start putting it off, then you start doing like what you mentioned, where you start thinking, oh, if I just started then, how much more further along would I be? Right?
Yeah.
So even if you feel like you're not going to be the best at it now, you might as well start now and start to build up those skills over time and hopefully
Yeah.
build an audience at the same time.
I think a big part of it is just being consistent. Like when we started, I whenever I listen back to the first couple episodes, I cringe because I think over time we've gotten more and more comfortable speaking, and we don't say like and stall, and we're not as awkward as we used to be.
I definitely do. I can't lie. That's
kinda
gonna
the
come out.
Go with time though, like you get comfortable, you get used to it, and now anytime that we have guests who aren't on podcasts and I see how nervous they get, I'm like, oh my god, that used to be us.
Yeah.
Do you remember how long it would take us to like start?
Yeah.
So
And it helped like to because we kind of did a gradual thing, right? Where we first started just purely audio. So we kind of got used to that format first and then introduced video because it let us kind of like get those early podcast nerves out of the way and then take the next step.
Yeah, I mean, like, we kind of did it the other way around. Like, we literally just decided, okay, like, this is not even my original co-host, by the way. This is like,
Yeah, I noticed.
yeah,
that.
I
Like,
didn't
it looks a little
recognize
different.
him.
and he's done a couple of episodes. He's done like
Yeah.
this like Killy Talk series that we do, where it's just like us guys kind of talking.
Yeah.
And yeah, I kind of brought him on for this episode because like I feel like I want to relate on the Islamic points. Like, I've seen you guys like talk about hijabis and like marriage and stuff like that, and I kind of want to get in tune because like I'm trying to gear up. I'm not saying I'm ready to get married, but I'm trying to gear up to that point. But I know that the marriage topic is overplayed on your podcast a little bit, so I'll keep it brief.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. The moment you put marriage in your title, you already know you're getting like at
Well,
least
so we just say
400 or
marriage
500
5
views.
times and people will click the video.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I feel
Your
that.
click-through rate definitely goes up.
The reason why I brought him on is because like he's like Krishna conscious, he does like that's your practice, right?
Yeah.
Basically, and it's a form of Hinduism, right?
Yes, form of Hinduism. Yeah.
And he kind of believes in like very similar principles to Islam, and I kind of wanted to like bring that in as an example, not like going too deep into it, but kind of like just giving an overview because it's obviously important to him, and that's kind of what his shooting star is that he's kind of trying to follow right now.
Yeah, like he has a different perspective basically that he can bring to this.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I feel like to start off with, do you feel like religion is kind of like a stringent rule book of things to follow, and really and truly, I believe that there should be some gray areas, and I feel like some people take religion out of context as like a rule book. So, do you guys find yourself like umming and ahhing about certain things in our religion?
To sort of answer your question, like I think you have to realize that there are also a lot of schools of thought when it comes to, let's say, Islam specifically. Like you have like
many
there's like
interpretations, transliteration, stuff like that.
yeah, like you have judgments. Like that's why it's not the best to judge. As a Muslim, it's not the best to judge another Muslim by their actions because you don't know if maybe they're following another school of thought when it comes to something that's been interpreted. There are certain things that are more like
black and white.
But then there is that room, like you mentioned, for a lot of gray area in more day-to-day activities that Muslims take part in. And I feel like maybe it's hard in online these days because you have people who don't realize that there could be other schools of thought, so they immediately jump at it and be like, "This is wrong. This is wrong." Not realize
Shia Sunni debate, for example, like that's very prevalent. It's like, you know, they don't see eye to eye to each other because like when they were growing up, they were told things that were contradictory about the other sect, and now they're bringing those perspectives into a real life conversation with adults. It's like it's not gonna work, you know.
Yeah, that's why it's okay. Sorry, I'm taking over here.
No. I was hoping.
I mean, you did say with your podcast, you know what I'm saying? Like she's just the co-host, and then.
No. I was playing about that.
Thank you for the shade.
Okay, I was playing about that. Okay.
I think rather than viewing it like a stringent like book of rules, I actually view it as I see it more of like a way of life. Like you know how, it's kind of like a guide on how to live your life, and I think just like Amir said, there are certain rules that are like very clear and very black and white, like it's either this or that. And then, you know, there are schools of thought and there are difference of opinions amongst the Islamic scholars for a reason. Essentially, it's like a mercy to all of us, right? Because I think in the day and age that we live in, a lot of us that are Muslim don't live in Muslim countries. It's actually very difficult for us to comfortably and openly practice our religion without feeling any sort of like discrimination or racism or whatever the case may be, because we're not in a Muslim country. Like that's just how
a lack of confidence, right? Like in an ideal world, like we'd all be praying outside and like, you know, we wouldn't care about people like staring at us.
And it's been spread from its roots. So it's been spread all over like the West, and like it's being done differently now. Like because it's
that too.
Your main country is going to spread to different countries, so it's sort of, you know, you're trying to adjust to it in different countries. So it's a bit different from where it first started. I feel like
that too. Yeah, that, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, when you're not in a Muslim country, like the society and the way that things are, your work, your school, it's not built around your religion. It's built around, like, I think in America, in Canada and England, like it's a huge separation between church and state. And so, you know, something as simple as Friday prayer for the guys, some employers may accommodate you to leave in the middle of the day to go do your Friday prayer, and some may not. And so you're not able to do that on a Friday, you know what I mean? But if you're in a Muslim country, I don't know if you guys have ever been, but you'll notice that shops will close down, businesses close down for an hour to 2 hours so that men can go and do that and then come back and resume their work day like normal. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the difference of opinion thing is sent to it's happening because it's a mercy, because not everybody understands things the same way. Not everybody can follow rules the same way. Yes, there are things that are black and white, and then I think there are also gray areas for a good reason.
It's like in your home country, it's sort of like you have to follow it. Whereas when you're when you're moving to, like, for example, we're in England, it's become sort of like a choice where you don't have to do your prayer at 2 p.m. or something, you know. Whereas if you're in your home country, it's like everyone it's 2 p.m. Let's all do our prayers now. It's like it's completely it's different.
Yeah, but that's, I guess, one of the things that's like kind of black and white is like the prayer itself, you know. We like are technically held responsible for that, but I think it's because we're kind of away from other Muslim people as much. You know, like if you're in a Muslim country, you're going to be surrounded by it, and there's going to be more eyes on you. And like whether we like it or not, when you have a certain type of eye on you, you assimilate to that kind of person.
Yeah.
You know, like for example, we had this guy from Birmingham on, and you know the accent is kind of like disgusting. Can't lie to you, but I basically started speaking in that Birmingham accent, and I didn't even know I was doing it. It was like an unconscious thing.
Yeah.
But like in the same way, when you're around those kind of people, you kind of like match their energy.
It definitely is like a huge, it's the influence of culture, right? Like the reason that back home everything is a lot more like, you know, followed by the rules. You know, everybody knows when to go for the prayers, and over here and like in the West, you kind of have that people who feel like they have more of a choice is because it's more ingrained in the culture back home. While over here we're dealing with a completely different culture altogether. Right. So it can lead to a lot of conflict with people who are trying to be more on their deen or more religious, but having all these other influences in the background.
Yeah. And something pretty good I wanted to bring up is like, okay, so this guy is obviously Hare Krishna, and similar to me, I kind of believe that if you have people who practice your religion around you more often, you will probably become a better that thing, whatever that thing may be.
Definitely.
Whether it's Muslim, or Krishna, that kind of thing. And me personally, like I've only started seeking that out this year because I was like, you know, you kind of want to be the people's guy, innit? You kind of want to have all of these different cultures around you because at the end of the day, everyone's trying to hit their diversity quotas, even you. You know what I mean? And
definitely.
You know, it might not be like people showing hijabis and McDonald's commercials and stuff like that.
You saw that.
Try to do that shit, you know? Like we try and show everyone that, look, I'm the peaceful guy. I have all of these people around me, so there's nothing to be worried about. Because we're all trying to, at that first meeting, we're all trying to make someone else comfortable, right?
Actually, I had a question about that. There's something we talked about a couple weeks ago that was a little controversial. Did you ever watch the show Rami?
No. Explain.
Okay, well, Rami is basically it's a show about a guy who's Muslim, at least in the first couple seasons, and he's kind of going on a spiritual journey where he's kind of like he's very like religious at one point, then he becomes not religious, then he becomes almost anti-religion, and then he comes back to the religion. So it's kind of following the journey of like a Muslim guy and trying to find his place in Western society while also having his Muslim identity. And it sounds very similar to a lot of things which a lot of people are going through in the West. It's very similar to what I feel like a lot of people are going through in the West. But I guess the controversy was that he's also like, of course, he's playing a character, but he's doing a lot of things that we would consider looked down upon in the religion or are sins in a way to get his story across. But a lot of Muslims are saying that this is not really a good representation of Muslims, even though he is technically also saying that these are not good in the religion, but he's still doing them, show the journey that his character is going through.
Yeah, so, the character development, right?
Yeah, so do you think it's important to have that type of representation in media where even though they're kind of showing a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes within the Muslim community, is that representation worth it to kind of expose the even the negative things that might go on with the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. Like, I was just talking to this guy, like, right before the podcast. And I was kind of telling him that, okay, like, he does this Krishna consciousness thing, right? And it's like a really important pillar in his life that he's following. So when he speaks on a podcast, he brings that kind of mentality there. And when he's answering certain questions, he's answering it in a way where he's portraying that he's already at that shooting star. And I would probably say that that's negative. It's negative to speak like that because you're kind of downplaying your personable nature. Like you might reach the attention of more people, and obviously that this is a podcast, it's on YouTube. We're talking to the average person, right? We're not talking to someone who's already made it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So you're saying like it may not be fully genuine.
Yeah. Like I feel like the best way to be is more genuine, because more average people will be able to cling on to your message and ride the journey with you. And I assume that you guys talk about the religion because you're also in the position where you're trying to better yourself. And you're taking your audience through that journey because you know that, having a hijabi on a podcast is probably going to bring more Muslim people. You know what I mean?
I think you're right in the sense that you need to be authentic, and I think the biggest thing that brings viewers in is being vulnerable. I find that whenever we speak on like mental health, breakups, relationships, like anything that like is not surface level, more people can relate, right? Because at the end of the day, like even if we have somewhat of a platform online, that doesn't mean that we don't go through real things. We still have day jobs, we still have like life outside of the podcast, and so the best way to relate to people is to talk about your life. And that was a big struggle for me when we started, because it's like, okay, now we're talking about personal things that, we wouldn't want to share with the whole world. But when we do, we also get good feedback where people are sending us like really meaningful DMs and they're opening up and they're telling us their story. So in a way, like us being authentic and sharing those real stories, if it's helping someone, then we've done our job. You know what I mean? Like if we're influencing someone in a positive way, we've done our job. And I wouldn't necessarily say that our podcast is a religious podcast in any way.
It's not, by the way, guys. Like I'm not.
I know. I know. I don't think it is. We do touch on it here and there because at the end of the day, we're Muslim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We speak on it here and there when it relates.
Yeah, I think even in our intro podcast where we introduce who we are, what we're doing, like we mentioned that we're not only going to talk about like things that affect the Muslim community or about Muslim topics. Like we're going to talk about every aspect of who we are, whether it pertains to our blackness, or it pertains to our Muslim side, or it pertains to our ethnic background. So it's supposed to be all encompassing because we are just people at the end of the day, right? Yeah. We're not going to try and portray ourselves as sheikhs out here. We definitely have faults, and we try to expose those and realize and show people that we're growing from them and what you can learn from it.
Yeah, and that is, I guess, the message that you guys want to bring across is like, when you're even, for example, selling to a person, you have to come down to their level first of like how excited they are. Bring your excitement down and then bring it back up, right? Because that's how you make the sell. So in the same way, like we're not trying to sell something to people, but we're trying to have these like real life discussions so that maybe one person might open up to you in the DMs and you might be able to help them, for example. Or you might just want to like fuck around and make people laugh, innit? Like whatever you guys want to do. I think both.
It's a mix of it all, honestly.
I'm more of a peacekeeper.
Are you though?
Just like
he's saying that he's a peacekeeper, but I feel like Amir's the one that picks the more controversial topics.
I think you definitely stirred the pot a little bit, man.
Absolutely does. If you saw our clip last week, everyone was like, ooh. How long have you guys been doing your podcast, by the way?
First release last year, so it's been about a year now.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Didn't blow off like how we wanted to, but like, as you said, consistency, innit? We're going to keep on trying to spread the message, whatever that may be. If, 200 people listen to it, I don't care. Like, it's more for me than anything else, you know what I mean?
Yeah, one thing we've definitely learned when you're dealing with just trying to get something out there in the social realm is that, first off, it's consistency. Yeah. It's also making sure you know how to like diversify where you're putting your stuff. So like you should put your podcast not only in audio form, but like on YouTube, you guys have done that, but putting it in shorts, putting it on TikTok, putting it everywhere possible, getting as much eyes on it as possible, and being consistent. Those are two of the biggest things that really help with it. And of course, like the quality of the content, it will come. But as long as you have some pretty good topics and good insights on them, I feel like the audience will come. They will show up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys, since we were like talking about, Islam and like the things that are more clear cut, what do you guys think about clubbing? Like, do you think Muslims should be allowed to go clubbing if they don't drink?
Like, everybody can make whatever decisions they want. Personally, I wouldn't go to a club because that's just not how I was brought up. But it's also like something that's generally just looked down upon in Islam in general. And yeah, I think like you mentioned earlier, the environment you're in, or the people you're surrounded by really affects what you yourself are going to do. You don't realize how much peer pressure affects you until you're in the environment and you're getting pressure to do something you normally would not do. And if you put yourself in a location where you're more likely to be influenced to do something that you wouldn't normally do, you probably shouldn't be in that location to begin with. So if depending on what your goal is, if your goal is to be more, if we're talking about Islam specifically, if your intention is to be more on your deed, more of a Muslim, try and be in more environments that will make you better in those cases. And I feel like that's probably not the best environment to find yourself in. But of course, at the end of the day, it's like a personal decision.
Because we were speaking about this as well, and how because I'm in Krishna consciousness, one of the things is that we should try to associate with Krishna conscious people as much as we can, and try not to associate too much with people that are non-devotees. And that's one of the questions that came up was like, oh, so if there is a club atmosphere, would you go to it or not? And I was like to him, well, I have to be kind of careful, and usually because I became Krishna conscious, I kind of stepped away from going clubbing and stuff. It just kind of automatically, I just kind of
because you're on a straight path, right?
Yeah, and obviously we're trying to avoid people who are drinking and all these things and just talking unnecessary things, which kind of happens when you're drinking. And he also asked me this other question. Well, so yeah, that's fine, but what if it was someone like a loyal friend? Or like someone in your family, like they're having sort of a party.
Or let's say it's like a birthday and like it's been your boy for like 10 years, that kind of thing. And you've done the work to be like, okay, I'm not going to drink. I practice like, not drinking. I'm not going to give into peer pressure. I just want to like enjoy the time with my friends and dance. Now, this is obviously the silver lining that we're talking about.
Because like at the end of the day, you kind of have to show your face to your family. So yeah, I would go to it and I would, try my best to do what I can with them, have fun, have good conversations. And I would be the one that's not drinking, but I would sort of, make as much as I can to make the event good, So like, for example, as everyone's drinking, I would just bring in board games, and have laughs and sort of make the place entertaining, even though I'm not drinking.
And more palatable for what you're trying to reach, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was just listening to your answer, and I think we would both kind of do something similar where if your family member is having a party where all of our family is Muslim, so I don't think they would have a party with alcohol. But if it's like a really close friend who drinks or has alcohol around, even if we did go, I think it's okay to show your face, but still uphold your boundaries. You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you an example. I went out yesterday after work with my coworkers. Everybody else was drinking, and they all know I don't drink, and they totally support that, and they were okay with it.
You put the boundaries there.
I think it looks worse if I, as a hijabi, I'm there like doing shots with my coworkers. I think that would look worse. Similar to clubbing, like I just feel like as a Muslim, like you know your boundaries, and like you said, and like Amir said, like you are who your friends are, right? So if you're trying to elevate in your spirituality, why would you, like, you're going to do your best to stay away from settings that are going to pull you back down, But at the end of the day, like, everyone's on their own journey, and yes, things happen, and yes, it's a roller coaster. It's not always like a straight line upwards, right? Like we can be doing great and then plummet and then go great again. And you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, if you set your boundaries and you uphold them, I think that's the best.
outwardly portraying like your spirituality, like your religiosity, I guess in general, a lot of the times those friends will know already what your boundaries are. And whether if even that question of them ask you to come here or there, like they might realize, okay, maybe this guy won't show up for this, but he'll show up for this. So those questions will change. You'll find depending
you come
on
to the dinner before, but you won't come to the clubbing afterwards.
They sort of know the boundaries, so they're kind of like, oh, they still ask if, oh, do you want to come chill out afterwards? But
like
obviously knowing my boundaries, like you guys said, I would, be like, oh no, I'm off now. Like, the days I've done what I needed to do, so I'm cool. So,
You're basically telling them, I'm not getting paid to hang out with you guys now. That ended after 5 p.m. So see ya.
Yeah, man. Some people at work try and really yank your chain to just be their friend.
Your coworkers don't listen to your podcast.
You get me. Shout out to you who I'm talking about if you don't know already. But yeah, so you bring up this TV show and you say, okay, because they're portraying not the ideal form of what we want to visualize as Muslims, that's like kind of offensive to you. And then also your close friend asking you to be in a setting that would cause you to do, not to do haram things, but to be in a more haram environment.
I actually love the show. It's other Muslims who are more calling it out for those things. Yeah.
Yeah. No, what's your full perspective on it then?
No, like actually, the funny thing enough, like those scenarios you're bringing up are things that are covered in the show, right? Yeah. And of course, he doesn't always make the decision you want him to make, but then you have to realize that this character is going through a journey, and like Sada said, everybody goes up and then they go down and they come back up. So it's just interesting seeing the choices that he's making and knowing that whether they're right or wrong by the religion that he follows. So that is just interesting because it's very. I didn't grow up like that, right? I didn't have a lot of those conflicts that he's having in the show. So it's interesting seeing someone who's going through it.
You didn't relate to the show in that aspect where you didn't.
I didn't relate to it in that, like, I didn't find myself in a lot of those situations that he's finding himself in, but. It's interesting to see that this is something that's going on, right? Because I'm just naturally curious. I want to see what goes on in other communities that I'm not aware of, right?
Yeah. I get you. It's definitely like a different way of thinking about religion as a whole, because like I'm someone who's obviously like messed up a ton, right? So like you're saying you're curious. I was very curious, but I was also kind of rebellious, right? So I really like argued with some of the stringent rules, which is probably why I classed it like that subconsciously, like a kind of coping mechanism to like, now I'm trying to be on the right path, but I know I messed up kind of thing. And I guess I just kind of got lost in it generally, and for that reason, I would relate to a character like that, and I would perceive that as a good message to bring to the average Muslim.
I think you would really like the show if you watched it. I know other people might be like, why are you telling this guy about the show? But honestly, I think you would really like the show. You should check it out. Maybe it's not in the UK streaming platforms, but you can find it on those illegal.
Yeah, a little VPN.
Exactly. But I'm telling you, I think you would really relate to the show. It actually made me very uncomfortable a lot of times watching that show. Yeah. I'm hoping that your audience actually has seen it so they know what I'm talking about. But
I'm sure some of them will.
Yeah, it's a good uncomfortability. Like it's he's not knowing that you would make a different decision, maybe a better decision, maybe may make you feel better, and maybe not make you feel as bad as the choices you've made.
Yeah. It's just like a little ego boost in it whenever you see, for example, someone who's not as experienced on a podcast, and you're like, oh, that's cute, but you get there.
No, oh my god.
Hey, we're all learning here, man.
We're still rookies, okay? Don't look at us like we're pros. We don't know what we're doing.
I'm gonna look at you like you're pros, and that kind of.
Oh my god.
Do you guys purposefully not associate yourselves with people who would put yourself in a decision, and would you go as far as to cut that kind of person off?
Ooh.
I think we'd be different on this, but you can go first.
Yeah, let's see. Because there's like these factors involved, right? There's like loyalty involved. There's like, I've known this person for 10 years and I basically helped him through this thing, or like he was having like an episode of depression and you kind of like helped him through that, gave him like a little bit of guidance, and you feel kind of, yeah, I guess it's a bit of an ego boosting where you feel like you've contributed to their life positively, so you still want to see their climb, you know? But yeah.
To this day, like the people that are closest to me are still my cousins. But outside of that, like I still developed more social circles with people that I did not grow up with. And so, I think it depends on like what you're looking for in these people, right? Like if you are networking and so that like, therefore you have to make these sort of connections, you kind of do it because you have a certain purpose in mind, right?
Right. Yeah.
You may not be their best friend. You may not be going out to clubs with them. They may invite you, but you don't have to go.
Yeah.
I think, like, would I go as far as cutting someone off? Because I don't know. I think what I would do is if I had a friend who was just very different from me, I wouldn't cut them off, but I would just make it very known, like, this is, the path that I want to take. If you want to take that, like, fine, but like we can still be friends, but I can't take that path with you. Like, right? I can't.
You'd be distant, right? So you wouldn't be like a close friend that you hang out all the time, because that will start to rub off on you, their kind of habits and stuff like that. Is that what you're saying?
It could be that, or it could be the opposite, right? Like, and I'm not saying I'm perfect in any way whatsoever, but I'm saying like if I'm trying to better myself, and if I'm really close to this person, maybe through my actions, they may be influenced. It's not always a negative influence, right? So, I think, I don't know. I think it depends. I've never really been in that situation where I've had a friend like drag me down completely at the end of the day. Like, yeah, I make mistakes. Yeah, shit happens. But at the end of the day, like, I always know to somehow turn back to my path again. And if that person wants to separate themselves from me, or if I want to separate from them, then
you can still see that person, you can still talk to them.
Yeah.
But then you'll always have to remember not to associate with them too much to the point where you're losing yourself.
Yeah. I mean, the simple thing is like, does the benefit outweigh the cost of keeping them in your life? Like that's kind of what I go to. And sometimes, like, whether we like to admit it or not, we do have agendas. This person can get me through this door to get a promotion, for example. And you don't want to ever be like, okay, bye, said person. I'm never going to speak to you again, because that's just cringy in itself, right? But I guess you can do what you're saying, which is like, okay, this person is not going down the same path as me. I'm not going to spend as much time with them, but I still want to keep them in my life because, we have this mutually beneficial thing that we got going on. But what do you think, Amir, man?
Yeah, like for me, I feel like it's important to have a diverse group of friends because you get different perspectives. But for me personally, it depends on how sure of yourself you are and how sure of your deen you are, your deen, but like your religiosity. Because like if you're sure of yourself, you know that you're strong enough to not be tempted by certain things. Like it's easier to have a more diverse group of friends because then you've set your boundaries. Most of the time, they know your boundaries, so it makes it easier to have that relationship without too much conflict or without too many awkward situations you're being put into. So I personally, I still have a lot of friends who are not Muslim from either college or even high school, even maybe a couple from elementary school, and I keep them around. I don't consciously keep them around, and I'm not ever consciously. I don't feel like I'm ever consciously gonna cut someone off unless they do something like physically, put some harm to me physically or mentally, right? So yeah, I just try and keep them as friends to make sure that I always have a good idea of the different perspectives of what's going on, right?
You want that devil's advocate in your life, because they will challenge your views, because sometimes you're so focused on your schedule and stuff like that you're not even worrying about this other perspective, and you might be wrong and you might be sounding like an idiot. No one wants to sound like an idiot, right?
Yeah. And I feel like that in relationship is important to me because it actually made me a better Muslim. it made me look more into my religion, maybe more.
You seek out for the knowledge, because next time you see that guy, you want to have something to say. You know
exactly,
what I mean? You don't want to be
exactly.
saying, oh, sorry.
Yeah, because you won't know, like, until people start challenging your ideas and your thoughts and your religion, you won't have that those answers or rebuttals, right? But because I had someone doing that, I started, like, I was able to do well on my own. But then there I was like, you know what, I should probably look into this kind of stuff just in case he comes up again. So you don't realize that relationships even like that, someone who's completely opposite to you, I guess, in that sense,
to look more into like, obviously it's gonna, the benefit's gonna outweigh the cost, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he's definitely trying to convert me, but
is he really?
Yeah, but
It just sounds like it, I can't lie. Like, this guy's going in for debates every Tuesday. He's got his book out. He's like, okay, cool. Monday morning, Monday night, after work, before work, you're like researching and shit. You're waiting for the conversation.
Why? Yeah, that's ultimately that's why I feel like it's good to have a diverse group of friends, and even a great acquaintances, because it can actually make you a better Muslim or Krishna conscious in the end, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, this has gone down the religious route. I feel like people who have who you meet straight away, and I know, like, we kind of spoke about these people, but you're saying like you're friendly with this guy. But let's say, for example, those random people that you see who come up to you and are like, Jesus is the savior, and they preach at you. How do you feel when someone like that comes up to you guys, both of you?
Faze me, and I think a lot of people who aren't Muslim don't realize that Muslims also believe in Jesus. Obviously, we don't believe he's God. We believe he's a prophet. But I don't think they realize that. So, I don't. Whenever, like, I don't know if you guys, this is like a very Toronto thing, but there's the guy that we call the Believe guy. When you're in the heart of downtown in Toronto, there's this old white man who shouts in your face and just says, like, he tells you believe in the Lord, like he screams it in your face all the time. But I mean, if you guys ever come to Toronto,
inspired.
You know what it is though? He'll be like quiet, and you're just trying to cross the street, and he'll startle you so bad.
It's like jump scares at a movie. Like, what are you doing, man? Yeah,
exactly.
I can respect it to a level, because when you're so devout to something that you feel and you truly believe in it, and you feel like everyone else needs to hear this now, like, there's a certain respect you can give that person. You're like, okay, you really do believe this, because you're actually going out in the streets and like preaching it to every person you see. I don't agree with the method exactly, because I don't believe that method is super effective. But I can respect it to a degree. So that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, if someone tries to talk to me, and if, like, I'll be honest with you, a lot of the times I'm just not interested in having that type of conversation. Like, I don't want to be converted. So I'll say it. I'll straight up, like, I'm a devout Muslim, or at least I'm firm in my belief. Like, thank you, but no thanks. And I think it starts to get annoying when you've already told them, like, I don't want to have this conversation, and they continue to try. That's when I'm like, all right, you have 3 seconds to get out of my face before I, How do you guys feel? Is that like something that happens often in London, or are you in London?
The reason why I brought it up is because that is part of the religion of Krishna consciousness, right? Like, you want to explain?
Krishna consciousness, even like, for example, today, like every Saturday, we sort of we go to different areas within London and Watford and Hertford, and different areas, and we
which they won't know, but London, basically.
Yeah, London, and we do like book distribution, and like we do like chanting of the Lord's name. Obviously, I've come across that experience where you're saying that someone's speaking to you about Christianity, and you're like, oh, I'm a Muslim, but they're still carrying on. I mean, that happens even with me in my experience today, because I was doing book distribution, and there was a time where they were like, oh, sorry, like, I understand your religion, but I am a Muslim, and I was just like, oh, that's understandable. I never forced it, because with me, I just feel like, if someone's got their own faith, just let them be, and just tell them about Krishna consciousness, and just tell them, it's a way of expressing God, and just like, it's fine, like, I've accepted the fact that you said, oh, I've got my own religion. But I do know people that would be like,
go the step further, and obviously I'm not like you. You don't go the step further. I'm not saying that.
Unlike me, yeah. And I feel like they shouldn't do that because now they're making Krishna consciousness seem as if it's being forced.
And that's what extremists do, right?
The way they feel. Yeah, exactly. And people start to think, oh, these Hare Krishnas, man, what are they doing? They're just trying to force us to do something. And I feel like even when I'm trying to give out books to people, they already know, like, oh, this guy's going to force me. Like, they're straight away just like, no.
Yeah.
So.
Do people do this when they walk by you? Like, they just.
Yeah, they do, yeah. And they pretend I'm not there. Sometimes I'm just there.
But there is a method to where I feel like there's a kind of in between there where I've seen people do this. There's actually I think like a group of Muslims who do this in somewhere in the UK where they're more like instead of like preaching it out or giving it out, they're kind of inviting people.
Right? Yeah.
Sorry.
They're kind of like asking questions, right? And like feeling you out first. And like we said with the sales thing, you have to match the excitement first and then bring it up. And if you don't manage to bring it up, you have to go home. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Various scenarios, So
and also just inviting people to be like, if you have questions, I have a table here. Come and ask me, right?
It's crazy how you guys were saying like people kind of walk by like this a little bit. But like I feel like it comes from somewhere for everyone, right? And for me specifically, my parents obviously try to like tell me to pray every day, all the time, like every second. Or whenever anything goes bad, you haven't prayed. This is why it's happening. Blah blah blah. Whenever I have a test, it's like go and ask your grandma to pray for you because that's what will help you get there. Right, Bismillah on the seat, that kind of thing. And to be honest, like. That kind of pushed me away from the religion for a bit, and that's what kind of sparked that rebellious nature. And it's the same way how people go like this. It's like, I don't want to be preached about something that I will probably never accept,
I think
you can always go back in circles and, realize, okay, they were only saying it for my own good and blah, blah, blah.
One of the things that we've spoken about on our channel is, aside from just straight preaching the religion, like aside from literally just preaching, a big way to kind of make people aware of Islam is literally through your manners. Like if you are so good to someone where they're like, wow, like you're a great person. Like, how are you like this? And you know how earlier in our conversation, I said for us, like Islam is kind of like a way of life, right? Like it teaches you how to have good manners. It teaches you how to be good to your friends, your family, your neighbors, and people you don't even know, right? Like something as simple as a smile is considered charity in Islam. Like you get good deeds for smiling at someone, which is so simple to do. So I think, outside of preaching in itself, I'm not saying it's bad, but if that's something that's difficult for one to do, you can definitely choose the manners route and influence someone in that way too. So, that's just my 2 cents on that.
I don't really know what you guys do outside the podcast. So can you guys brief synopsis?
Do you want to say what I feel like it took over there for a while. So
No, that's okay. I was actually enjoying your answers. Okay. But you mean like our day job? Like what do we do in our day job?
Yeah, sorry to ask such a shitty question, but what kind of...
So I'm a supervisor at a pension company. And I actually have to practice having a grip on my emotions because I have a team under me, and I'm responsible for developing and coaching them. And not everyone you're not going to get along with everybody, but you, as someone in a position of power, like you have to show some level of stoicism. Is that the word?
Yeah.
And sometimes we have clients that the employees aren't able to speak with, or they get so mad that they want to speak to a supervisor, and now I have to deal with someone screaming on the phone. And so just like how you said, like someone could be literally cussing me out because they just want their pension, they want their money, and for whatever reason it's delayed. So I'm here like, yes, no, I totally understand. Exactly, a Karen. So and my job is to then de-escalate, diffuse the situation. And so I feel like that in itself has taught me how to just chill out.
Yeah.
Their frustration has nothing to do with me personally. They just want their money, and that's it. So, you know, that's my job. That's what I do, 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, whatever.
Yeah. I'm an electrical engineer by trade.
Yeah.
But I like to think less about career, but I'm more of like an engineer in life, if that makes sense.
Ooh.
Okay, not to get too deep. Not to get too deep. Okay, so like even though.
By the way.
Sorry, go ahead.
I studied electrical engineering also, by the way.
There you go.
Oh,
see?
okay.
So, but because I have that engineer's mentality, like sure I work as an electrical engineer and I'm in a control systems field, but I've always had the engineer's mentality in that I like to learn how things work. Yeah. So I picked up a lot of different skills and things just I've learned over time, because as an engineer, like you like to learn how things work and then use them for whatever project you have coming up, right? So like I've learned how to like do sound design. I've learned how to edit, how to work with Photoshop, anything in the creative. I'm very much inspired to do more creative things, and I use my engineering background to be able to learn how those things work and use them for my creative endeavors, basically.
Wow, that's interesting.
Oh, awesome.
So now I work at a housing association called Network Homes, and it's
someone shooting outside your house?
I think it's Diwali.
It's fireworks. Yeah.
Shout out everyone.
Oh, okay.
I was like, you guys aren't even flinching. He's just like, yeah. We hear all these gunshots. Like, okay.
Try not to pay attention.
I work.
So you still work in the field, kind of?
Yeah, I still work in the field because I work in the electrical side, and I deal with for different affordable rented homes and buildings and blocks. I deal with like the lifts and making sure that they're working and making sure they're serviced and inspected. So yeah, it's a very good job, but I can get long, but. You know,
it can get monotonous. Like all of the jobs that you guys described so far are kind of like monotonous in the sense that, you know, you have to repeat something over and over again. And to a certain extent, the creative outlets that you guys have and like we're trying to like build up here is allowing us that freedom to kind of break that monotonous nature of things, especially with the fact that we get to bring topics on board, and we know that through discussing these topics and bringing outside perspectives on, we can grow as people. And that's probably why a lot of people started their podcast in lockdown, because they didn't have anything else to do. And then when they realized, okay, it's not like a direct route up, they decided, okay, I'm just going to put myself in endeavors that actually bring in the money. But we've sat there and gone, okay, cool, like we have our stability. Now, what the fuck? And now,
we're not getting shot.
Yeah, we're not getting shot. London's not that bad, guys. You know, the stabbing is not guns, okay, guys. But
we're in the hood too. Don't worry.
Trying to make out the hood, man. Trying to make out the hood. These creative outlets give us that power, and we kind of like prioritize that. But yeah, do you guys feel the same way in the sense that you're trying to break that monotonous nature of your job with this?
Yeah, I think this podcast definitely gave us that creative outlet, and honestly, I feel like it forced us to even be more open and vulnerable with each other than we ever have in the past. Like we've had so many conversations through this podcast where, you know, I don't think we would ever we don't really speak about relationships like that, and we've talked about everything here now.
Then through this period, because you guys sound like you guys are open with everything, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
for the podcast, but I feel you. I know what you mean.
But you never told us what you do, by the way.
Yeah, no, I don't know why I didn't.
Trying to avoid the subject.
No. So I do marketing, right? So I do like.
Nice.
It's basically CRM, so I like manage like, you know, all of those spammy emails that you get, web pushes, push notifications, all of that shit. I'm basically trying to program people's behavior. It's essentially what I do, right? But yeah, like obviously I want to build a marketing agency so that I can have the freedom, but obviously this brings in the money. I kind of have experience, kind of like fell into.
But this will give you a lot of experience in that.
Exactly.
That like just marketing a podcast in itself will give you a lot of experience around that, especially since everything is done online these days.
Yeah.
Like you can leverage those skills to use them in whatever business you have planned in the future, right?
Yeah, no, that's literally the plan, you know. But yeah, it's just crazy how like we took all of these different journeys and now we're kind of like doing this thing. Do you feel like because of this generation and how we've seen people gain all of these quick accolades from stuff ranging from stupid shit like Love Island all the way through to people who are like doing these like motivational kind of podcasts? Do you feel like we've been kind of brainwashed in that sense? Like we've been made to put this thing out there, which is kind of exposing us to a certain degree. You feel like we've been kind of brainwashed to do that a little bit?
I think a little bit. I think that our generation, especially with the rise of like reality TV stars or social media influencers, etc., has made it's become more attainable to reach a level of like, you know, I think we spoke about this once where, you know, when you think about the traditional celebrity, whether it's a singer, actor, whatever, they always, their lifestyle or their level of fame and success always seemed unattainable as kids, right? Like it was always like us versus like us and them. And then you have reality TV stars where someone could be an average Joe one day and then become an overnight sensation the next day, or social media. Like, I think that now people who are trying to make it online, they know like, okay, so if I want to make it, I have to put myself out there. I have to talk about this crazy story. Like, you know, those story time videos on YouTube where people tell their whole life something crazy happened and then they get like a million
This is my
views.
breakup that happened last week. I'm going to put it online for everyone to see. Obviously,
exactly.
I don't think that's something that would come from any of our channels kind of thing. Maybe not the last week anyways, you know what I mean? But, yeah.
Well, like, there is do you guys know Bo Burnham?
Yeah,
well,
to some extent.
Bo Burnham, yeah, he was originally like an internet star. Like he made like these kind of satirical songs, but he came out with a documentary called Inside. Or not?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say I did like his stupid you know, we have two bathrooms. There's a guest room bathroom thing. I covered his
the song.
Stupid shit.
Yeah. But that one, so he had a Netflix special, called Inside, and it kind of goes into that topic of like how and essentially the idea was that like everybody is technically performing these days. Like everyone is it's almost like we're all on a stage and we're performing for someone or performing for everyone at the same time, which is now why people can't go and experience something without pulling out their phone, right?
Yeah.
This is why like you can't have a unique experience and not and feel okay with not recording it in some way or not capturing it in some way.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're all kind of, like you mentioned, brainwashed, I guess, to be almost in performance mode at all times.
Yeah, because we're like leveraging our memory banks in exchange for, you know,
dopamine,
admiration. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do you guys feel the need though, where like if you're out with your friends or you're at a restaurant or you're on vacation, oh, hold on, let me just take a picture and post this on my story? Do you guys feel that like need to do that, or are you able to live in the moment and not take a single photo?
Yeah, most of the time I'm able to not take out my phone. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, if I don't post consistently on my story, then people will stop following my story. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build an audience so that I can build a network of people who are kind of similar to me, but also might have said businesses. I might be speaking purposely to side hustlers so that I can build a marketing agency from it. And this might hold my goal. So that's what plays in my head when I'm like, oh, maybe I'll post myself at this nice restaurant with this mood lighting over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like
because we're all trying to sell the idea that we're like our life is something that it might not actually be. So we can leverage that idea of who you are or even that audience for whatever endeavors you have in the future, like you mentioned. And I feel like there's a lot more people who have that same thought in the back of their mind, where they're trying to be consistent because they know how the algorithm works, and the algorithm has trained us how should we be posting, what should we be posting, and when we should be posting. And of course, there are people who probably don't choose to join or play in that game because they don't have those aspirations, but a lot of people do. And that's just the reality of the situation in the world we live in right now.
Mm-hmm. I feel like sometimes it's actually better to live in the moment because you appreciate it more. Whereas
it always is, right?
When you're like filming it and like videoing or storying or something like that, I feel like you don't appreciate that day as much.
But on the contrary, like I feel like I'm a very nostalgic person. I like to look back on photos and videos. So like even if we're at a concert, for example, if the artist is playing my favorite song, I'll record like the first verse and chorus, and then I'll I'll put my phone away and just enjoy the rest of the song because I want to be in the moment, but I also want it for memories later.
Yeah, me too. Like it's like the equilibrium we're trying to reach, and shout out equilibrium clothing.
Shout out to Shirts.
You know what I mean? But yeah, like in terms of like the algorithm kind of playing on our minds, and we have to like be more performative and act in this certain way to capture it. I feel like a great example of that recently is how Kanye West decided to wear a White Lives Matter thing, and I wanted to ask you guys what you think about it.
Personally, I don't think he's well. I'm sure you guys know, but he suffers from bipolar disease. But disorder.
Twice, you know, he brings it up, and I feel like people kind of use that as a shield because they want to still appreciate his art, and they kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. And because of that benefit of the doubt, he wows out and does stuff like this.
I don't know if he's going to continue to get the benefit of the doubt at this point. If you saw in recent news, like a lot of Balenciaga pulled him, like they removed him from their partnership. But I think that in the beginning, he didn't take his meds because he felt like it stunted his creative abilities. But I think, you know, anyone who has any sort of disorder or disease, if they have some sort of medication to control it, to control it in some way, like obviously you should be taking it. You should be taking the responsible route. What he's doing right now is like a very prime example of just letting something, like he's just unhinged. Like he's doing things for reaction. We spoke about this too, where, you know, he has gone so far where he's like destroying his personal life. He might, who knows, like he might end up ruining his relationship with his kids. And it's like very sad to kind of watch someone who a lot of people used to look up to take this like very steep downward spiral, you know?
But I feel like I think we disagreed last time. I feel like people are responsible of themselves to a degree, because I was actually listening to another podcast where the guy had a friend who also was bipolar.
Yeah.
And he said that his friend told him like straight up, like, whenever I don't take my meds, I feel amazing. And he'll try and say the craziest things to just elicit a response from his friends, knowing that they're crazy because he feels good. And that's the side of bipolarism that we're probably seeing from Kanye right now.
100%.
But but that friend also knows like the responsible thing to do is to take your medicine or to take his medication. And if someone actively chooses not to take it, at the end of the day, that's their responsibility. And whatever occurs in that time where they're not taking it, they're responsible for it. So whatever the reaction is, good or bad, I feel like he's responsible for it, right? So whatever's going on right now,
he put himself in that position, and if you put yourself in that position, you have control over that thing, and that means that you can't get mad when you get the reaction that you deserve, right?
Yeah, or that society believes you deserve.
But don't you think like the White Lives Matter thing was like a little bit funny? Because at the end of the day, he was taking the piss, right? Like he was trying to take a piss out of a movement that didn't actually do as much good as the perception was trying to be.
I think if he stopped there, it could be like seen as satire or comical, whatever. Like you're like, haha, very funny, Kanye.
Right? There was two parts to the issue at hand.
Yeah, and then he kind of just kept going. Like he spoke about, like he kind of touched into like anti-Semitism at one point.
Yeah.
He touched on like George Floyd. He was saying, "Oh, he didn't die because the cop had his knee on his neck. He died because he took some kind of drug or something like that." Like he's just like really, yeah. Like he's just, I don't know. I don't know if I can really have any more sympathy. Like I'm not that hardcore of a fan of him anyway, so I'm kind of just.
Well, for me, it was like if he wore a White Lives Matter shirt, okay, that's one thing. But it's also who he had next to him that was really an issue. Because to actually speak on that George Floyd thing, the person who made the documentary saying that cop didn't have his neck on his back was Candace Owens, who was the other person wearing the White Lives Matter shirt. So it was more than just a shirt. If it was just a shirt, and then he later explained it like it was an ironic statement, how or like maybe he was making a joke on something, sure. But then when he associates himself with certain people that make documentaries saying that someone who was obviously killed by a cop was not actually, and he was actually on drugs or blah, 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 making up this information, that's where the problem for me really relies. By the way, my laptop's about to die.
I was just going to tell you, like, can you go plug it in?
Yeah, it's probably died.
Yeah. It could be like a quick fire question session, but what's the most embarrassing thing that has happened to you?
There's probably a lot of things, but I can't really remember one.
I can tell by your smile, you're like, man, there's one too
kind of
many.
like take away the things that are too embarrassing to say on here. That's what you're kind of doing, right? I guess for me, it's probably like to do with like going for a girl and getting rejected for like the first time. Like that was probably the most embarrassment I felt. And to be honest, looking back, like I was lacking as a kid, you know, like I didn't grow into my ears and shit. You know what I mean? Like I was going for the kind of girl that I was going for at the time. But yeah, no, that was embarrassing because it was kind of a crowd of people in a predominantly white school, like 80% white people, right? And like I'm doing this almost like a performance, you know, some people would say. And I did it because I wanted to like stand out and like seem ballsy and stuff like that. And like when you get rejected in front of like a whole bunch of people, you feel like your trousers are down, basically. Like that was like the most embarrassing, and it was because I didn't have the capability to handle rejection at that point. But then it's like a beautiful lesson, right? Because after suffering comes bliss, right? And I just got really comfortable with getting rejected, basically. And now,
no, honestly, it really does help to.
And as a guy, I feel like it's necessary to get rejected. If you don't get rejected, then you're not gonna get anywhere with the opposite sex. To be honest with you, because like you know, the pickup art. I'm not like a pickup artist or anything like that, but like the pickup artist industry would probably say that it's like a numbers game, right? And like you know, you have to go out there in abundance to seek out the right kind of woman for you to like start settling down with. And since that's the path I'm on right now, it's, you know, it's a good thing that I've been burnt before in this realm, you know, because now
you don't know what you want until you start like actually going out and seeing what's out there.
No, for sure. So what about you guys? What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you?
I feel like we've already talked about a lot of these things.
I feel like the blind man story takes the cake. The blind man story?
That was too long, but
okay.
There is one thing. Okay, so like I'm kind of exposing I told this story before, but so you know, like speaking about like dating in that world in general. Yeah. So you know, I took someone out one time. Yeah. And it just happened to be their birthday at the time. So like, okay, you know what, let me do something nice. Let me get them something like a cake for their birthday. Yeah. And this person really liked ice cream cake, right? Yeah. So I was like, you know, it's the middle of winter. I'm sure it'll be nice and cold, so I can go around. I can like hide an ice cream cake, right? Yeah. So you know, we went out. Like I got them food and everything like that, and I was getting ready to like surprise them. We like pull up to the car. I open it up. I pull out the ice cream. The whole thing is melted right in front of them. And like it's in like a little bit of a cup thing, so it was kind of holding in place. So I didn't know it was melted yet. So I tried to put like a candle on it. Candle just fell in. Yeah. Next thing you know, I try standing it up, and I try to like light it up. The whole thing doesn't start lighting up because it's too windy outside. So this person just standing there watching me struggle with a cake that's fully melted. liquid is getting everywhere. The candle's not turning on, and like that was an awkward drive home. Definitely.
It's just silence.
Yeah, so it's probably the most embarrassing, not most embarrassing, but one of the most embarrassing things that happened.
Yeah, no, because it was out of good faith, right? You were trying to do something nice, and it kind of bucked up in your face.
Yeah.
Now you portrayed yourself as whatever, right? Yeah.
One of the embarrassing moments for me was
well, you found one.
Yeah. I mean, what it was I got a new spoiler basically installed in my car, and it was on for a few months and it was all good, like there was no issues. But then there was one morning when I left to go to work, and I drove to work, and then as soon as I parked the car, I got out of the car to get my work bag out of my boot, and I realised the spoiler was just not there. So
what?
I think while I was driving, it must have just flew off. I didn't know it was.
But did you park up anywhere?
I didn't park up anywhere. This is one straight journey from.
Oh, so it just fell off.
It just fell off while I was driving to work.
That person who installed it owes you money, bro.
Did you install it yourself?
No, So it was me and my dad that installed it, but obviously
there it is.
maybe I should.
But and
I forgot to put in the screws. Let's do one more here. We'll finish off on this one here. It says, if there's one thing you would want to be known for after you died, what would it be?
Well,
I think that the thing that you said at the beginning is a very admirable thing to strive for. So, like, I would like to be known as, like, a kind of level-headed person, but I also want to be known as the kind of person who is able to provide. I feel like that's, like, one of the pillars that I would like to strive for, in the sense of, like, you know, take my family through, like, a journey of, like, you know, reaching these accolades and being comfortable, and also, like, bringing some of the friends around me that I have, bringing them up with me. You know, now I don't know the exact time scale. I don't want anyone to hold me to this, blah, blah, blah. But, like, that's what I'm striving for in the back of my mind and to myself. And let's hope I get there, innit? You guys could probably see if you're watching this right now. Subscribe right now. What the fuck are you doing? But yeah, like, that's what I would like my legacy to be, is, like, you know, providing, and also, like, this peacemaker who's able to bring people up when they're down around me, so that when my grandkids are telling my story, like, that sounds nice to me.
Yeah, because then they'll have, like, someone in their own family they can strive to be, or strive to look for, you know, like their own role model. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and you want to be that bridging gap between, like, someone who is unattainable and someone who is, like, an average Joe.
Because they say if he can do it, then I can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I like that.
What about you guys?
I'm going to steal your answer and say the same. I think for me, I would want to be remembered as, you know, just being kind to anyone who comes in my path. I
think you guys are very kind.
Thank you. That's really nice of you.
And I think just moment right now. Oh my god. Yeah.
I want to be known as leaving people better than I met them. You know, so
that's a big
whether that's through friendship or just general advice, if they're seeking that from me, or help in any way, and I'm going to keep it at that.
Wow. That's a good one.
And for me, it's I would want to be known as someone who gave, or at least helped his community as much as he helped his own family, or like who loved his community just as much as he loved his own family. Yeah. Because, like, if it's one thing to, like, love your family, of course, like, you always want your family to think good of you, but if the community thinks good of you and recognizes the things that you've done for them, I feel like that's also important, right? Yeah. Like, I don't know, the community is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
You guys have kind of shown me through this podcast that there is a way to go about that, and I'm definitely going to take on some lessons from this. I'm sure that Levan is too. Yes. And we brought a different perspective to him as much as he brought a different perspective to us. And exactly. I guess this is a signing off, guys. Hopefully we'll have another conversation soon. Maybe like in a year's time we can come back and like rewind the clock and see what's happened.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Or hey, if you guys are ever in Toronto, hit us up.
That is like the ideal
we
goal.
were saying as well where we were like everyone says Canada's amazing, so you want to go and have a look and
it's aight. It's aight.
Toronto's nice.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
what's going on here?
We're gonna be like, wow, this is amazing.
Any closing thoughts, guys?
Well, we want to thank you guys, of course, for inviting us onto your podcast, and everyone who's listening or watching. Make sure you subscribe to their channel. Okay, we're trying to get them up. We're trying to see the boys win. So subscribe, like the video, leave a comment for future suggestions if you guys do that. Hopefully you do.
We're getting there. We're learning.
Gotcha. And if you guys like this collab, let them know, and you might do it again.
Yes.
Yeah, no, please do. But I've learned a lot from you guys. So thank you for coming on.
And I just want to say as well, just before we go, that make sure you guys subscribe to Cousin Connection as well. They're doing it.
Hey,
thank you.
I'm a dickhead. Sorry. Thank you for making. Appreciate it.
And also, if you guys want to check out my YouTube channel, it's Love in Life, and I create dance videos.
We'll put it in the middle somewhere,
and dance tutorials. So if you guys want to check that out, maybe learn a dance move that you might want to pop somewhere. And there's a lot of things on my videos, vlogs,
and stuff coming up. Tell them there's heat coming up. That's it. My family's from East Africa. Biggest mountain over there is Tanzania. That's why it's like the journey.
Nice. Okay.
East Africans unite.
I know. We're neighbors, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Okay.
Thank you.